So you're thinking about moving to the Orlando, Florida area, but you want to know exactly where that should be because all these cities around Orlando have really created a giant conglomerate of Orlando. Today, I'll be explaining why that I believe the West Volusia cities of DeLand, Deltona, DeBary, and Orange City up on the north side of Orlando are actually better than Orlando itself. Then I'm going to be going back to my office and showing you the area from a map perspective. Now look, these are not listed in any particular order, but there are one or two of these that you may not have considered, so be sure to stick around and don't shortchange yourself. The very first reason that I prefer the West Volusia cities of DeLand, Deltona, DeBary, and Orange City over Orlando is the noise. Look, Orlando is a huge city, and as such, there's a ton of people. So there's a ton of ambulance, fire engine, and police sirens. It seems like they're going constantly. Next, the nightclubs and the restaurants are playing their music all night long, even in the middle of the day. The other day I was down at Point Orlando, which is down near the attractions, and I was walking by this restaurant and it practically made my ears bleed. Now, I love loud music, I love that, but I don't know that everybody is really going to appreciate that, especially at night. Here in the West Volusia area, you're just not going to see that. Next thing regarding the noise is the airports. They're all over down there. On the north side, you have the Sanford International Airport. On the south side, you have Orlando International Airport. And then right in the middle is the Orlando Executive Airport. And listen, people are flying into Orlando from all around the world. And so there's a lot of flights that are coming in and out of here every single day. Next, horns. All these people, everybody is just crammed into a tiny little area, especially downtown, and they're all over their horns. I don't know if it's just the people, maybe it's the stress of the traffic, but we just don't see that up here in the West Volusia area. The second reason is that it's really centrally located. Now, you can argue that Orlando is centrally located as well, but we're here 30 minutes from the beaches of New Smyrna and Daytona Beach. You do have probably 45 minutes to Cocoa Beach, which is straight over from Orlando. We have Orlando itself is probably 45 minutes, between 30 and 45 minutes if you want all that noise that I just spoke of and if you want all that traffic. Sanford International Airport is our closest one. We're probably 25 minutes from it. Right here we have Stetson University, we have Daytona State College, we have Bethune-Cookman College over in Daytona, and there's a ton of jobs right here in this area. DeLand is a tiny little town, but there's a good bit of people here. There's also Orange City, which is where our commercial activity is. Then there's DeBary and Deltona, which is primarily residential, but look, there's a lot of people that work right here in this area. Next, there's all sorts of hospitals, restaurants, and shopping right here in the area. Never are you more than probably 15 minutes from a major hospital, and restaurants and shopping are all over throughout this area. So in my mind, you're not missing anything at all by being up here, aside from maybe the nightclubs that I spoke of a minute ago. The next reason that I prefer the West Volusia cities of Deltona, DeLand, Orange City, and DeBary is pretty controversial, and that's the politics. Look, Orlando is a blue island in a sea of red. DeLand itself is a bit blue, but the area as a whole is definitely red, especially in the country, which primarily out to the west of the West Volusia area into Lake County and north, up from De Leon Springs through Pearson, Seville, and up into Palatka, they're very conservative. We have a lot of churches in the West Volusia area that are thriving. So look, if you're of a conservative mindset, the West Volusia area may be better than down there in Orlando. The next reason that I prefer this area is the cost of living. It simply costs you more down in Orlando. Just the other day, I was down there with family and we rented an area at the pool and we got a little tent, and just to park my car for 4 hours cost me 50 bucks. You just won't see that up here in this area. We don't have all that touristy mess going on where they're seem to be just sucking every last dollar out of you. Plus, the cost of a home down in the Orlando area, the median sale price is right around $390,000, $395,000, whereas up here in this area, it's more around $321,000. Also, there's no toll roads up here in the West Volusia area, but down in Orlando, if you have to go more than 5 miles, look, you're going to be on a toll road, and it's not cheap. The fifth reason that I prefer the West Volusia area is the roads. Homes are just not on any major roads in this area. I-4 runs throughout the entirety of West Volusia, and it connects from Daytona Beach down to Orlando, and eventually runs all the way over down to Tampa. You can take 44, which runs all the way from the west coast over to the east coast of Florida, right through the heart of DeLand, and you can catch 95 over there, which of course runs all the way from the northeastern United States down to down to Miami. 1792 runs down through Orlando, up through DeBary, Orange City, and into DeLand, and up into that country up on the north side that I spoke of a minute ago. We're about 20 minutes to the 417 and the 429, which is really that Orlando bypass that goes all around Orlando, which again is all those toll roads I spoke of a minute ago. Now look, we have some great areas up here that people flock to, but they're quite a good ways from the highways. If you want to be in this area, but you don't want to be right near one of those major roads, simply give us a shout because we can help connect you. We know these areas, we've been working these areas for many years, so if you want to be in a particular area, let us know because there are great areas that I refer people to all the time that are a long ways from any of these major roads. The next reason the West Volusia area is better is because of the pace. We just don't have all the craziness like they do down in Orlando. People are not laying on their horns when there's somebody sitting at a traffic light for a minute, some old guy fell asleep, or some young lady's on her phone. People are pretty patient up in this area. We don't have road rage like they do down there, and look, I can attest to that. I've sat in traffic for hours down there. It's insane. People are just nicer to each other in this area. You know, when you're walking by someone on a sidewalk, they're probably going to make eye contact with you. They're going to smile. Who knows? Maybe you'll spark a conversation. People are just nicer here than they are. On community groups, online, on social media, and things like that, people are friendly to one another. This area, although this area is comprised of 4 towns, there's really a small town feel throughout all of this. People will sit around in diners, and we have some quirky little diners. The Philly Diner is one of my favorites right here in DeLand, and when Eagles are playing, that place just shuts down and taken over by guys and gals in Eagles attire. It's pretty crazy. I'm not a big Eagles fan, but let me tell you, it's really cool if you are. The next one may be a surprising one because we're not as busy as we are down in Orlando, but because of our large elderly population, there's really good health care everywhere here in the West Volusia area. Advent Health is big up here, but look, Halifax Health is also big. You're never more than 15 minutes from a major hospital. There's healthcare facilities that seem to be popping up on just about every corner. There's also a VA facility over in Daytona Beach that's probably 30 minutes away. The next one is really a big one, and I probably cheated before by mentioning it already, and that is the traffic and congestion. And this may be my biggest complaint about Orlando. But look, it's not just Orlando. It spreads a long ways out. It spreads down into Kissimmee, Dr. Phillips, and Sanford. I've spent over 2 hours sitting on I-4, as I may have mentioned before, but look, the entire Orlando area can get gridlocked. And it's not just the big areas. When Orlando gets gridlocked, it spreads throughout all these little cut-throughs of every little back road. But if you don't live in Orlando, you know, don't think that you're exempt from it, because maybe you're in Oviedo and you say, well, I'm not in Orlando. Well, you know what? It stacks up in Oviedo, down in Dr. Phillips, Castleberry, Winter Park, Maitland. Look, I can go on and on. It even stacks up all the way up to Sanford and Lake Mary. It can be pretty crazy up there too. But as soon as you cross that St. Johns River Bridge on I-4 into the West Volusia area, that traffic pretty much disappears. The next reason that the West Volusia area is better is because the tourists. Look, they are everywhere down in Orlando. They come from all over the world, and look, that's good. They bring money, they bring other things too, though. They bring litter, they bring crime, they bring that fast pace, and some of them, guys, they can be really rude. It's just different, and from us up here in the West Volusia area, we're just not used to that. We do have snowbirds up here, a lot of them, but I don't really consider them tourists. They come here for a sunshine and relaxation. They usually show up in, you know, between September and October, maybe into November, and they'll stay for 6 months, and they're bringing a lot of money. They not only inhabit the homes for 6 months, but they also help alleviate that traffic for those 6 months when they're gone. They're friendly, they're easy to get along with, and the retirees really seem to love our slow pace. The next one is land. You're not going to get a home with land down in Orlando unless you're spending 7 figures. If you want some space, you're going to need to be up here in the West Volusia area, especially out on the west side of DeLand or up on the north side. But look, if you want an acre or a half acre, you can get that anywhere in DeLand, Orange City, even in DeBary. You can find plenty of land, and you can still be 10 minutes at max from shopping, restaurants, hospitals, churches, and everything else that Orlando has. The next reason that I love the West Volusia cities of Deltona, DeBary, DeLand, and Orange City is recreation. Look, we have 365 days of sunshine here in Florida, and as such, there's a lot to do, and there's a lot more to do up here in this area than there is down in the Orlando area. We have some fantastic springs. DeLand Springs and Blue Springs are fantastic for jumping into 72-degree water. In the summer, that's ice cold. But in the winter, look, it feels pretty good. We have walking and cycling trails around Green Springs and Gemini Springs. We have Skydive DeLand, which is a fantastic place that my wife and I love to go, maybe after church on Sunday. We'll go up there, we'll have lunch and just watch the skydivers just rain down out of the sky. DeLand is a destination for people all over the world to come skydiving. We have the St. Johns River and all sorts of lakes. We have Lake Woodruff and Lake Beresford. Kayaking, fishing, or just riding on any of these lakes and rivers is a really big deal. Plus, we're probably 30 minutes from Daytona Beach, New Smyrna Beach, and the Indian River and Mosquito Lagoon. So look, there's a lot to do here. We have a ton of state forest land where hiking, hunting, and bird watching are really big in this area. Pontoon Island out on the west part of the island is a great little place where you can get a free ferry across to an island and barbecue, swim, whatever you want to do there in the St. Johns River. Next, cycling. There's a lot of cycling up here in this area, but it doesn't really exist down in Orlando. The reason is all that traffic and congestion. We have the Spring to Spring Trail, which connects Gemini Springs up to DeLand Springs and Green Springs in between there. There's also the East Central Regional Rail Trail, which runs all the way from coast to coast here in Florida. And we have the St. Johns River to Sea Loop, which is probably a 100-200 mile loop, but it's fantastic. Now, can you cycle down in Orlando? Yes, you can, but you're not gonna ride your bike downtown in Orlando too much. And it just takes a lot of time to get to one of these trails. You can do it, but look, again, you just have to get there. If you want to be anywhere here in Orlando, or whether it's up here in the West Volusia area, and maybe you're a cyclist, so you want to be near the trails. Maybe you want to fish, so you want to be near the river. Maybe you want to be near that skydiving. Just give us a shout and we can make sure that we put you in the right location for you. While Orlando is the city beautiful, and it is a beautiful city if the big city life is your thing, look, Lake Eola is amazing, and iDrive has all sorts of fantastic activities, and Orlando has some great assets if that's your thing. Orlando just not compared to the charm of DeLand or DeBary. DeLand and DeBary specifically have all sorts of small local shops. There's all sorts of little restaurants where people sitting around just relaxing. They're really at ease. We have little ice cream shops like Wits and Rodeo Whip that I've been going to Rodeo Whip for like 30 years and it never gets old. Eating ice cream here in the Chess Park where we are today is amazing. We have the Athens Theater. Now look, the Bob Car in Orlando is amazing and they get some fantastic entertainers there, and it's surely better than the Athens itself, but look, it does not have the charm that DeLand does. If charm or a small town feel is important to you, then cities like DeLand and DeBary in the West Volusia area should definitely be considered as superior to Orlando. The next reason that I believe the West Volusia area of DeLand, Deltona, DeBary, and Orange City is superior to Orlando is simple quality of life. Look, as a licensed realtor, I'm very careful about how I address the crime issue. I look at crimegrade.org and I encourage people that are buying or selling with me to do the same. Crimegrade.org says that Orlando and this entire West Volusia area have very similar scores. The website indicates that they're A or A minus scores, so you should check that out for yourself though. Here in the West Volusia area, there are just not as many panhandlers. Now, I don't know if by ratio there are more down in Orlando, but it just seems like I see a lot more of them. There are bad dudes everywhere. There are criminals everywhere. I don't care where you live, but I cannot say that I've seen it, but I've heard some of my friends and customers voice concerns, noting that there seems to be a lot more of it down in the Orlando area. So now that we've addressed some of the reasons that the West Volusia area is definitely better, let's head back to my office and take a look at a map and see how these cities lay out in relation to Orlando and everything that it has to offer. Okay, so I'm back in my office now, and you're going to see the great state of Florida. And we're going to zoom in just a little bit. Notice the relation of Orlando to Tampa, Jacksonville, and St. Augustine. St. Augustine is America's oldest city. We're going to zoom in on Orlando. And first thing you're going to see, I-4 running through it, Tampa up to Daytona. And you're going to see the Beltway that I spoke of, one of those many toll roads, 429, 417. Up here is Wekiva Parkway. And you're going to notice all the little cities around it: Apopka, Wekiva, Longwood, Altamont, Winter Park, Dr. Phillips, Windermere, Oviedo, Bithlo, Wedgefield. These are all Orlando. We don't call them Orlando, but rest assured, they're Orlando. And if you're in any of those cities, you're dealing with traffic. Rest assured that rush hour, it's going to take you longer to be there. And that's why the West Volusia area, up in this area, which is not as sparse, not as populated, is more desirable. Take a look here at the relation of this is the Space Coast, Cape Canaveral, where all the cruises run out of and where all the space shuttle takes off from that area. Over here, you're going to see the relation to the West Volusia area, DeLand, Orange City, DeBary, and Deltona, okay, all right next to it. About 30 minutes north, 30 to 40 minutes, or 2 hours if you're sitting in traffic. Now, I spoke of the toll roads. It's important to note that I-4 is not a toll road. However, they recently put in tolls, express lanes, which is a wonderful thing because it helps us to get where we need to go without having to worry about sitting in traffic, because sometimes if you're stuck on I-4, you're going absolutely nowhere. These other roads are great, but they don't take you to the heart of Orlando, okay? So let's zoom in just a bit and let's take a look as we leave the Orlando area and we head up through Longwood, Lake Mary, and Sanford, where we sell a lot of homes. Lake Mary, Heathrow, and Sanford's a very nice area, but they are still dealing with the traffic mess. The traffic, to most of us here in Central Florida, we generally say that the traffic stops right here on the north edge, or on the south end of Lake Monroe. There's a big high bridge here, and we enter up into DeBary. DeBary is the first town you're going to come to in this area. A lot of older homes in DeBary, built in the 70s, 80s, even into the 90s, but they're in this area here. There's a lot of new construction down here in this section down here. Riviera Bella is a beautiful gated community, and then the DeBary Plantation is a golf community, and then there's Glen Abbey on the other side of 1792, another gated community. So that sits just on the west side of Deltona, which is also on the north side. Here's Stone Island, where we just did a video recently in Stone Island, a beautiful new construction home. But you're going to see Publix here. There's only a few Publix in Deltona, a few grocery stores. They do have a new Aldi up on the north end, up in this area up here somewhere is where the new Aldi is. And but this entire area of Deltona, primarily residential, 3-4 bedroom homes. Median sale price in Deltona is going to run you around $300,000, whereas over here in DeBary it's going to run you about $375,000 as a median sale price at this time. And not much else to do in Deltona but live. DeBary doesn't have a whole lot to do either, for that matter, but they do have Gemini Springs, which is many years ago we used to swim in Gemini Springs. They had a hurricane come through, flooded it, and since then it's just been for there's a big playground there, great place to have events, throw a frisbee, great place, but it's a little, you're not swimming there anymore like you can up here in Blue Springs in Orange City, that 72-degree water I was speaking of. Then you come up through DeLand and then up to De Leon Springs, where Ponce de Leon did his thing. Those springs there, and he visited them, and he stated that was those springs were going to extend your life. So I don't think it's true. I'm still getting older, and I've been in De Leon Springs many times. But let's take a look at the area a little bit more. I skipped over Orange City. So we have DeBary in this area, Deltona in this area, and then we have Orange City kind of filling in this hole in the middle. Now, Orange City is where those of us in West Volusia come to shop. We have a Target, Walmart, a Lowe's, all the restaurants that you're going to need, because there's not a lot of that in DeBary or Deltona. There is up in DeLand heading north. Now, as we get into DeLand, you're going to notice Highway 44, which I spoke of, because it goes all the way over to the beach. This area out here is very rural. So if you're somebody that wants land, if you want to be in the country, maybe you want a manufactured home, this is the area to do all of that. We've sold a lot of homes. Our team, my team and I have sold a lot of homes out there over the years. And over here on the east side, you may say, well, Chuck, there looks like all country here too. Well, it is. It's also swamp. And we try not to put our customers in that swampland, try to discourage them from buying homes in there. But the truth is, there's just not a lot of homes in that area. But Highway 44 comes over to New Smyrna Beach. And then up here is South Daytona and Daytona, followed by Ormond Beach at Highway 40. And then eventually, and of course, we're just coming up I-95 here, eventually to St. Augustine, which is America's oldest city. And so back down to DeLand, you're going to see that DeLand pretty much starts just north of Orange City and Deltona. Lake Helen's a little Mayberry-type town, sits right here off of I-4. Wonderful little town. Butler's Express at Christmas time is definitely a destination for most of us. They also have a fantastic fireworks display. A bit of an equestrian community over there. DeLand does have an equestrian component to it, but a lot of it's out west out here. Sorrento, which is about 25 minutes, well, maybe 30 minutes west of DeLand down here, out 44. So in DeLand, we have Victoria Park, which is the big news, big cookie cutter area, this whole section here. Well, excuse me, I'm going too far up. This section right here, excuse me. And then Longleaf Plantation, half acre, 1 acre homes. And then you get into some other homes like Bent Oaks. I was in there today. And then DeLand proper, downtown DeLand, primarily is at this intersection of Woodland Boulevard or 1792 and Highway 44. We actually recorded this video, the first part of it, right up off of Indiana Avenue, which is somewhere, I'm not seeing it real quick here. So before I make too big of a fool of myself, I'm just going to leave from that. But that's downtown. Stetson University is just up from it. And a lot of new construction out here on the west side. The west side of DeLand proper here, a lot of 1 acre parcels. And there's a lot of historical homes here in the downtown area. Just north of DeLand, you're going to find De Leon Springs. You're going to see a lot more of its green, huge equestrian component to De Leon Springs as well. But we're going to go up through De Leon Springs, up through Pearson and Seville, up into that country. So that pretty much concludes our tour of the West Volusia area. Look, if you want to be in an area that, if you want to know you're in an area that is close to something I've spoken to or a ways from something I spoke of today, simply pick up the phone and give us a call. Thanks for watching.